Hey. My name is it's Kyle Spreedes and I've written the book Decide Your Destiny, and I'm the custodian of the Decide Your Destiny movement. And
I am Angela Talent, author of Poems from a Lost Soul and host of the podcast Relatively Damaged. And this is the
destiny
of your soul. Almost.
Okay, you're taking it from now. You're taking that.
Okay. Whoever says it last, the intro can take it from here on out. There we go.
Yes.
Because we try to trade off, I think,
Yeah.
Because we can. But,
yeah.
So I just want to acknowledge that we are 25 minutes early today. And this will probably be close to our new time, I think. I think it works well for both of us. And hopefully it works well for you, our listeners, because we love when you participate. So, come on, hang out, have some fun.
Where's your mom? I'm wanting some comments already.
I don't know. She's getting ready to move. We'll see if she pops on. That would be a fantastic gift of time, right?
Get those Twitter fingers out. Come on, Mom.
Yeah. And speaking of, how to find, now I put the question, how to find fortune in family, even if they aren't related. And I think the reason for when I put that, because you had sent a question right after I posted it, that was, how do you find your fortune family, which made a lot more sense to me. But, that we look for mom and expect her to be here is beautiful.
Yeah, exactly. See, she's straight off the bat. She's helped, the texture and the style of this episode, because she really does show up. And that's what family's meant to do. They're supposed to show up for you and support you, and you support them. And any relationship will not survive if it doesn't have reciprocity. If it doesn't have both ways. And I think a lot of people are fearful of giving too much of themselves or their time or their energy. And I know I've had the same sort of mentality or victim mentality, and those sorts of things. And the truth is, we're spiritual beings. There's no limit to what we can give, and that is one of the most joyful realizations, is that we can give, and we can give more, and we can give better, and we can come back again and give in a different way. And you can edit a poem, I can edit a book, and we can come back and give in a different way, or how we communicate, or and one of the things I really appreciate about you is that you constantly kind of reflect and reevaluate, and you don't have cognitive biases leading you. You kind of go, okay, how could I have done better in that situation? I think the world goes awry when we contract and we're in stasis, and we're not going, well, how can we do better? How can we do politics better? How can we do economics better? How can we do energy better? How can we do all these things better? Or are we just happy with the same narrative? How can we do media better?
Yeah, I was reading a book. Oh gosh, what was it? How Minds Change, maybe? I think it was How Minds Change. I don't remember the author. If I apologize for not having that. I didn't think we were going to go that way, but hey, here we are. And in that book, it actually talked about how we might be able to do politics better. But I think it really starts in who we surround ourselves with. Am I going to surround myself with family that does not challenge me because it feels safe and comfortable and easy? Or am I going to surround myself with people that are willing to challenge my ideals? And, in a healthy way, it's got to be one of those. I think we need to be able to have the conversation that says, hey, maybe you might want to think about this. But sometimes in family, what happens is there's this idea that, one person becomes like the authority figure or the dictatorship. And sometimes, we automatically think our parents are that, right?
Yeah.
And we don't ever get to that point of equality with a parent. And the reality of it is they are also human. And I think we said this, I think I may have said this early on, but our parents are learning, as we grow up, they're learning too.
And kids teach you always hear that, like your kids teach the parents lots, they teach them a lot,
Oh.
you know.
I'm speaking from experience and I'm laughing because my thing is my children have taught me who I am, because I would be in like the most difficult situations where there was no good choice. It was like picking what's the best of two evils, or not evils. Just there was no good choice available to me for them. And, I had to make a decision. And
Yeah.
sometimes, I mean, yeah, it just taught me who I was. Could I stay true could I stay integrous? Could I,
Yeah.
could I love them as who they were? Or was I
Yes.
trying to change them into
Yeah.
who I thought they were supposed to be? Um, there's a great poem by Khalil Gibran. I think it's called On Children or something like that. And it talks
Yeah.
about how the children are the arrows sent forth from our bow, but we can't make them like us. We can't put them in our dreams.
No.
They're, yeah.
No. They're going to make their own decisions, and I think a big part of kids molding is being able to go out there and touch the hot pot and burn it themselves, and explore and actually have that freedom. And when I came to Australia, my father, here he really advocated for that. He's like don't, like, because my grandmother, she's so loving, but she's like, don't wrap him in cotton wool, like stop it, like he needs to go out and experience life, and you're going to be told like all sorts of things, like what to think, what not to think, who to follow. I mean, that's how you look online. That's our world right now. I mean, like, I'll tell you one one pet peeve. There's like this absurdity over here, in some Australian media channels, um, and they're kind of talking about, you know, like they're getting people to go and speak and talk about how they're now marketing professionals. And I know some of these people personally. I've done work with them. I know how their business runs. I know where the holes are. And they're saying, don't put all your eggs in one marketing basket, which I totally agree with that part. But then they're saying like, we don't have to use Twitter anymore, and like and it's a problem that I'm finding in today's day, where people's morality is so confused that they mess up the point. If you're upset with platforms, or Zucky B, or Elon, or whoever the guy is, and your thing is to contract and pull away and cancel culture and bitch and moan and complain and hate, that's actually not doing anything. If you push more goodness into the universe, if you push more greatness, if you push more of your message into the world, then there's a conversation. And this is the thing that I can't stand with, cancel culture, or just like, oh, we'll just cut this person off. Like we'll literally digitally like terminate this human being. It's like, we need the conversation to be a healthy society and a civilization. And I've noticed that here, like there's such a heaviness, and it is, like it is yucky. It crawls up the back of your skin, because, and I guess it relates to family, because it's kind of that like indoctrination of like, hey guys, we're writing an article. We all agree with this, don't we? Well, you better, because this is the way it's going. And it's like, what the hell? I'm a human being with my own thought, with my own opinion, with my own judgment, my own experience. Let's have a conversation here. And like for me personally, and look, I'm not saying all media. A lot of media is, like there is positive media, and media can be used like to promote your business, and like there's all sorts of different things there. But a lot of what I've seen is that like when it's that narrative, like come on, and there's like an Australian saying, like that says, don't be a tosser, and it's like, and it was used pretty much, don't throw rubbish on the ground, but now it's used for anything. Vote this side, don't be a tosser. Vote that side, don't be like it's this kind of
Mm.
social, like like assume my beliefs and my side. If you don't, then you're a tosser. It's like, okay,
Oh, yeah.
that's a huge amount of ego, and like huge amount of, I think I would say, intelligence, because we don't know the politician personally. We haven't done business with them. We haven't seen their career. Like, so we haven't seen their paperwork. We don't know everything behind the scenes. And so now we're going to
Yeah.
say you're a tosser if you don't join the guy that I like. And so it's extraordinary to see this kind of thing. And I mean, for me, I just like it pains the eyes. And it's the same thing of a family member, like some family that I have. You'll be sitting down, and they'll just say, "Oh, we just don't do that. Oh, we no, we do this. We just don't." Yeah, like people just don't do that. And it's like there's so many limitations, and this is going to sound really weird, mental chastity belts, like mental like constraints and chains put on each other, because I can't be, and this is where it comes from. It comes from a lack of, I can't be confident and sure of myself if my reality isn't designed with my fluffy toys of you agreeing with all my beliefs and everything in the world. And
Mm.
I see it in such a heavy weight in the last few years, where to the point where like you can't even have a conversation because people just dump their reality on you, and there's no conversation. And you realize that if you question it, you're disturbing their reality, and they attach their identity to their belief, to their current thoughts that will change over time. They attach their identity to it, and so when you shake that belief, that thought, that opinion, oh, I hate this guy on a podium, I hate that guy on a podium, but this other guy on this podium's better. Like when you challenge that belief, then you challenge who they are as a core, and then that's why they act out, they misbehave. And it doesn't matter if it's your friends, if it's someone like who's writing opinion polls in the media, if it's your auntie, if it's like your direct family, they will all act out if you start challenging their
Yeah.
their belief. But it doesn't mean you don't challenge it. I just want to say that.
Yeah. Well, if living in that binary world, now I remember coming up with an idea, and I thought it was a really fantastic idea, and I took it to this group that I was in, and I was like, "Hey, I think we need to do this." And I'm sitting in the meeting, and we're going over discussion, and there were ideas that, because I brought up my idea, that it actually morphed into something new and became something really beautiful that I was actually really a lot more happy with than my original idea. But sometimes I think it's easy to forget, because we do live in this binary world where right and wrong, good and bad. And what if that's not true? Right?
Yeah.
What if Republicans and Democrats aren't, well, in the United States, aren't, it's not binary, because it's not. I mean, really, what our elected officials in any country is important to I think do is to um, what's best for the people, and the same in family, right? So when we have those conversations, and I love that you said it doesn't mean you don't want to push back, right? Like you don't
I
want
love
to
to.
say something, you want to say
You
something,
have
you
to
want to
agitate.
challenge it.
Yeah. You have to
Yeah.
agitate the mental, like self corruption, or like the delusion, like, because like, and that's out of love.
Right. Now, as long as they know it's out of love, right? And even sometimes when they do, what can happen is, especially if you've got one person pushing really, really hard with an idea, right? And they're going to
Yeah.
push and push and push. And all of a sudden, there's going to be a crisis of belief, I think is what it's called. And they're going to have to make a choice. And if the other person isn't pushing, so let's say we've got three people involved, two family members and one other one, for instance. And then so one of them is pushing their agenda, and they won't stop saying this and whatever bad thing or whatever horrible thing or whatever until that person buys into their story. Well, at that point, it's not really the other person's job to go push, 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 push. Also, right? Because we already
Mm.
have the pusher, and then we have the other person, and then we have the family member.
Yeah.
So if this other person goes and pushes, 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 they're actually engaging in the dysfunctionality of that whole dynamic instead of stopping it. So at that point, when that person has a crisis of belief, it would actually be important for them to say, hey, I'm going to go check and see what's going on. Is this true? Or can I disprove what this other person is telling me? So the same thing happens across the board in all kinds of different environments, be it work, politics, families, anything, where if we can go the easy way and we can choose to just believe what someone is telling us and be like, okay, well, that's the fact, and we'll just go with it. Or we can do the research, investigate, and see if we have a bias or a confirmation bias or even not even a confirmation bias. Sometimes it's just easier to go with that belief that person is giving us
Yeah.
because then we don't have to think about it.
Yeah, and so, like there's times where definitely like there's times where like you don't have to make someone wrong. Like like if you can, like if you're trying to move a relationship forward or a friendship forward, or like say you're trying to catch up with someone and they're like, oh, you told me this date, right? Instead of me coming back and saying, well, you're wrong, it was this date. Like you can say, oh, well, there was something lost in miscommunication. That's okay. Like what date would you like to do? So like moving it, moving it forward instead of the bickering of, like who was wrong originally, and you're going back, 20 to 23 different wrongs and rights, and it's like you don't have to. And I think that's the thing. Like there's all these intricate little details or intricate little things that I think is making the people very confused. And I think one of the things is you don't have to make someone wrong for the sake of being wrong, but like don't try and hide the truth from the light of day. And if we want to change, like what's the first, like what's the first step in changing? It's the realization of a need to change. It's an awareness of, okay, I can't keep drinking until 2 a.m. because I forget to drive my kid to school. Whatever it is, like it's a realization like, oh, bugger, I got to stop doing this. And I think a mass realization would be that so many of us are domesticated by the indoctrinations of our family or society, or we're domesticated by beliefs, and we're like thrown, like it's kind of like little quabbling dogs. We're like throwing little bones over here and over here, to tear apart. And it's I don't know, like when you see it, like clearly you can just go, what are we doing? We're not progressing, And so that's the whole thing, like that I have a challenge with is like, okay, yeah, so this guy, I didn't really like what he said here and here, but I'm looking at what he created in this company as an inspirational thing. So can I have admiration for that part? Or because he said something over here, do I have to just destroy him and then allow myself to become stupid by cutting off any opportunity to educate and learn? And that's what I think happens. So we're so volatilely attached to feelings and emotions and how did this person make me feel, and oh, you sharing your belief made me feel so sad. And it's like, take responsibility for your own feelings and emotions, and be aware that you can become domesticated through your beliefs, through through these beliefs that you attach to. And I think it just
Yeah.
it pulls you away from your fellow human being to be able to create something. Because why don't you go, okay, well, I don't like this person who's on this platform. I'm going to contract. I don't like contract, and contract. And it's like you're actually causing like I think there's no middle ground, or I think there's always like going forward or going backwards. Like that's my true belief. So if
Well,
you don't
isn't
like
that
something,
binary, Kyle? I'm just going to call you out on that.
well, I know, and look, that and that you can. That, I appreciate that, but that's my, I don't know. Like I genuinely feel, and that's my thought process. I think
Yeah.
it's just you're either pushing good into the space or you're pulling back, and then what do you like? It's like that whole thing. Light. If the light goes out of the room, darkness
Mm,
takes over. If you
yeah.
so if you're and then also that darkness doesn't just take over, it seeps into your family. Because if you're upset about something, then you're going to complain to your family, then you're going to bring your family down, then they're going to be less productive in the world. They're going to not be as inspired in the world. You know what I mean? Like, so
Yeah.
it's that awareness to realize what good can
Yeah.
I bring forth? What good impact can I
Yeah.
have?
Well, and you may not even complain about it, right? But because of that belief, it's going to impact, the rose-colored glasses, how you see anything else in your world. And then, maybe at home with family, the way that behaviors are interpreted are, it's going to be interpreted negatively, even though it was just a behavior that had nothing to do with that work, but that work created anger, and then the anger came home, and then the anger interpreted that. But the other thing I was thinking about while you're talking is that you were talking about people, and this one person being, they made a mistake, or they did something that people believed was not good, and then but this person built a great company. So am I just gonna, I think you said, am I just gonna throw away that person, cut them off because of these other things that weren't good, right?
Hmm.
And when I was thinking about that, it's like there's so many things in this world that can be good and bad, and we don't need to split ourselves and say that things are only good and things are only bad, right? Like if things are, sometimes microphones can be bad, especially if they are left on and then you're talking and somebody overhears something and it wasn't meant that way, but they interpreted it one way, or maybe somebody was just getting something off their chest and I just looked at my microphone and that was the example.
I love
But
it.
so in that case, the microphone can be good or bad. If we look across history, from a biblical perspective, war is, you'll hear people say war is bad, but then if you read the scriptures, in some places war is good, and in other places war is bad. So is it always, is that person in our family, or that person that we've chosen to be part of our fortune family, are they only one?
Hmm. Look, I would have to, and I love what you're saying about I think the big thing there is the intention, because I would disagree. Well, in one element of saying there's definitely for me there's definitely definite bads and definite goods, and then there's immaterial objects, or objects that we bring good or bad to it, exactly like what like the intention. Like, do I bring intention to this mic to create good stuff, or do I go on this mic and say, run for the hills, everything's terrible, oh my god, there was a car accident today, oh my god, there was this horrible thing, everything's going to and then, oh great, I'm gonna like ripple out crap into someone else's life. They're going to ripple it out into their relationship, and they're going to ripple it out into their community. So or am I going to say, hey, resilience, being persistent, showing up time again, keep that going, and you will find a direction that you can find. If you're struggling, go seek some help, get someone who has distance from the problem, like, so you bring the intention to it. I mean, a friend of mine, in my network, he runs a charity organization called Destiny Rescue, and they basically help child trafficking kids. Like, it's just such a scorn on this planet, and such a big problem that doesn't get media or sensationalism like oh my God, you hurt my feelings, like, like, you know, like there's bigger things than that. Like, for instance, um, just to segue quickly, I've got it's like a work experience student that's been working with me and learning about photography, and like, and a friend of mine's created a short film, and he's learning like all the ropes and all that sort of stuff, and just having like chats with him every now and then, and him saying, oh, like, oh, he was going to share an opinion or a judgment or something about, which is good, let him share, and then once he shares it and it's out of the box, out of his chest, then we can have a conversation around it, and see if it's harmful or if it's not, whatever it is. But he's like, oh, no, I can't really, share my thoughts on that because that's something. And I was like, what? Like, it's like a new label at school. Like, you can't say this because then it means this. And then I'm like, holy crap! Like, how tongue-tied are the kids of today? And it's not like, I'm not just saying, oh, it's just the schools. It's like, well, the litigious system we've created allows so much finances and suing and all that sort of stuff. So of course you got to be careful what you say. And so there's all these different elements that are constraining the kid, when the kid is at a time where he should be expanding, when he's trying to figure himself out and creating and experimenting. And I always use this example because I know I was a fool when I was a kid. I did some silly things. I was around my mates. We did some stupid things. We went out at night. We had fun. But in today's world, you get one video of that, you get one photo of that, you get one, like you said, little microphone of you saying something stupid out of context in a sentence, and you're pinned. Like, the rest of your life, it like has that kind of that sludge flavor to it. It has that connotation.
I think there's a couple of concerns there. One of them I think I want to touch on is the safe space. And when I say that, it's when we create these spaces of safety, it seems to me that there's this forgotten. So I go to Al-Anon, and in our group there's a concern about safety, and in that, with yes, there should be a concern for safety. I 100% agree. And they also have a conflict resolution kit, right? This should be a safe place for
That's
people
awesome.
to try and resolve their conflicts in a healthy manner. And I think that for me, when I'm talking about a safe place, I'm talking about learning how to safely have a high risk conversation, or a conversation that has caused some sort of conflict. I was having a conversation with my mom a while ago, and we were talking about how we would deal with stuff, because she had said something to me. Well, I don't want to get there, because she's moving back to California, and have problems. I said, well, I don't know if that's really something that we can commit to on either side. I think that we're going to have conversations where we disagree. So what can we do so that we can get through those conversations in a healthy manner? So we actually created a small document that's not done yet, but it was a list of things utilizing the conflict resolution kit and some questions from Esther Perel. And one of the main things at the top of our document was that we would remember that, the goal is to remember that we love each other and we want what's best for each other. And so in any conflict, we're going to come from that perspective. So how do we teach that, right? How do we teach that when we have family and they're not doing what we think they should be doing, and we haven't found other people to support us, right? Because sometimes I think we also need to let go. There are some people that just put us down, or, you talked last week about making the cut list, right? Like,
Yep.
and sometimes people just leave our they're just not in our life anymore. And that is also family, right? And what if that's okay? What if it's, well, if they're just not supposed to be there right now? I think sometimes it depends really on how we're interpreting what's happening around us, and it has more to do with them than us, and maybe that's okay, right? I mean, might it hurt? Absolutely. And maybe that's just the way it has to go to get to the next place. right? That's which
What are
is
some of
really
those
hard.
tools in the conflict toolkit? Conflict
Oh
resolution
goodness
toolkit.
gracious! You're
Testing
asking
you
me
now.
hard questions. Yeah, um, like principles above personalities. Let's see. Hang on 2 seconds. I've got my phone right here. Let me see if I can find it.
It's all good. I put you on the spot. Maybe we
It
can listen to your
is.
poem after this.
So really, it talks about so the first one's unity, right? Like I was saying,
Yeah.
we're going to come from love. This is really important, that we need to have mutual respect for each other. Let's see, singleness of purpose. So we have a common bond. So we have that singleness of purpose. We're going to do this. We have there's freedom with balance. So we can live our separate lives and then come back together, right?
Mm.
There's having one primary purpose, so having compassion and understanding, cooperation without affiliation, or one spiritual aim, self-support. So abundance, there, everything we need is available. Knowing our roles, who are we? What is our role in the situation? Working together, having structure with flexibility, and keeping principles above personalities. There's a couple other ones, but I don't think we put them in our list. But it's
What?
just really important to have a plan, because there will be conflict. And I think a lot of times, at least in my family, there was this idea that if we just did it right, there wouldn't be conflict. Well, that's a fallacy.
You're dealing with different people with different brains and different
Well,
experiences
yeah, and we
and
don't
influences.
really. Exactly. And we don't. Okay, this is something I think about a lot, but how much internal thinking do I do? And do the
Mm.
people around me, have I even made them aware? Have I told them? Have I had successes or excitements this week? And did I even tell them that I
Mm.
had that? Did I have challenges that I made it through, and there were strengths that I used? Did I tell them about that? Right? That's why I have to remember we are different people. And even if we live in the same house and have a lot of experiences together, we still don't have the same experience. We watch different shows, we participate in different things. And if I can remember that, the problem is when getting dysregulated, right? Angry or frustrated, upset, whatever, when my heart's racing or I'm stressed, is remembering. I don't
Yeah.
know. I don't know. Do I really know? I
Yeah.
don't. I have no clue. I'm
Yeah.
interpreting the way I think I should,
Yeah.
and from my
Well,
perspective.
yeah, and I think what happens when you've got like when people are in their head a lot, um, and they're having that cognitive bias information, which in today's world you can have so much cognitive bias information. You can go through weeks without anybody disagreeing with you, and disagreeing is so important. Friction is important. Like what happens when you lift a weight? There's friction, there's resistance, there's pressure against you, and it's molding you into a sculpted version of yourself that was within you, but you just hadn't pulled out of you yet. And so
Yeah.
instead of tiptoeing away from life and not facing those things, it's like you're gonna, well, like, then this is what I talk about, like the life, and like it's either life or death. It's either darkness or light. Like if you're not going towards a meeting, and I've had to do this with my health. Like if I'm going, oh yep, I did that whole experience, did that whole healing myself, sorted it out, that's sweet, now I can just coast. It's like, no, what happened to you at a young age means that you, above a lot of the population, can't coast, can't go develop a drinking habit, can't go eating oily foods and just like putting on weight. Like you, it's not about the look. It's about, hey, my spiritual being wants to develop, extract the potential, and reach for the potential that I can on this planet with my time, and and give out as much as I can. And in order to do that, I need to take care of that health now. And if I'm not taking care of it, I'm doing the opposite. You know, if I'm
Mhm.
not generating, I'm degenerating. And so this is a big part of it, is if people are in that cognitive bias and they're not having that friction, having that pressure, having, you know, like heated battles, or someone to agitate their current belief system, then what happens is they'll get so looped in that cognitive bias that when you go and see them, like you pop into the house, whatever, and I don't know if you've experienced this, but people talk at you. They don't actually get into communication with you. They don't talk with you. They just talk at you. And it's
Yeah.
like, I see it so clearly. I'm like, wow, you're just talking at me. And then I have to realize when I'm doing it, you know, like when I'm like, and sometimes I'm really passionate and I wanted to share something, and, you know, but then I'm not, then I got to go, wait a minute. Like, what would this experience be like for the other person? Like, let me just see how I can get into communication, because if I'm bringing this passion and, you know, if I'm wanting to share, hey, I just learned all this stuff. If I'm getting them involved by, whilst I'm sharing this passionate, oh my God, I read this thing and this, but then I'm asking, what do you think about it? Or what, if I start asking them questions, or if I start engaging and involving them, then they're into communication with the flow of energy that I've created, you know,
Yeah.
from what I've listened to. So that's how I look at it. Like, you know, getting people involved with the flow. And you can notice it straight away. Like, you'll be talking for a few minutes and you can just, it's so obvious today. Like the eyes will flutter and all sorts of. And I heard something that actually we've got less of an attention span than goldfish. But sometimes that's a there's a fair, and because everyone uses the goldfish terminology, but apparently they've got like a longer attention span. But anyway, we so guys,
No, I just real quick. I want to
study on your
ask you a
goldfish.
question. Okay. I just want to ask you a question about that, because you were talking about that frustration, right? And needing that pressure and that conflict. So when was the last time that you felt frustrated and then achieved something? And what did you learn?
Yesterday. And I'll probably feel it at some point today, you know, like, and that's a part of life. And I'll answer that question, because it's a great question. But what I was just going to finish with was, with the like the kind of concern of, like, I guess, looking at it in a negative way of frustration and the pressure and these sorts of things. I think that's, again, when we kind of pull ourselves back, and when you, it's kind of like when you sink into the pain, when you feel the sweat, like allow the rain to hit you when you don't have an umbrella, like you experiencing life, you're connected to it. That frustration and that anxiety and that depression and that raises when you try and retreat and contract away from life. And that's what created my health, my big, like my major problem. Like, for, you know, while I was in a coma and nearly died, and had that whole experience, was I was contracting from life because I didn't like what I was experiencing, rather than going, hey, I'm not enjoying this exchange. This ain't reciprocity, this relationship. I want to actually go have a different experience. I want to actually move forward into the future and create a better future, rather than being stuck in this, you know, this present, you know, destruction, or this, yeah. So basically, what did I learn? So, you know, I think yesterday, frustration of trying to get multiple things done, and I'm about to fly out tomorrow to see my grandmother in Sydney and spend 2 weeks with her. And there's the frustration of not getting certain things done, you know, like that you wanted to get, you know, done, because you're going to be in a new city, and, like, obviously your routines change and can't take the big computer or whatever it is, whatever the case is, you know, all the hard drives, and so, you know, I'd rather be more nimble when I'm over there. But the frustration of not being able to get those things done allow me to realize the priority, and going, wow, this actually is beautiful, because I've got pressure to get the right things done, and I got to get out of this mindset of trying to get it all done. It's kind of like the business owner that wants to do every job in the business and then wonders why they're not having any profit. It's like, well, you haven't actually grown the business by employing any other people to take the jobs that maybe like, so if your main job is to actually get money into the company, and then you're spending 8 hours a day filing, like that company is about to die. So it's just that reality of going, okay, and it's confronting yourself. Like continually confronting yourself. I think that's the frustration. The frustration is when I'm not confronting myself. And I'm in that stasis or in that moment of going, like, oh, but I got to get this, I got to get that, okay. And then just realizing, hey, wait a minute, what do I actually need to get done? What are the top priorities? I will get them all done because that's a commitment to myself. I want to get it all done. But what do I need to get? What will help me progress forward now and create that momentum? And that's the thing, because sometimes you'll do the filing for 8 hours, and that won't give you any momentum. So sometimes you need to do some of the things, do a bit of the filing, and then do some of the momentum stuff. Do a podcast, do a video, just do something, just to cast out into the universe. And get
To
that
break
energy
it up.
flowing. Yeah, and then when you go back to your filings, you might be 10 times quicker. So that's I think probably the learning through the frustration.
So the frustration for you feel this frustration, and it's kind of an icky feeling. And sometimes you might find yourself filing for 8 hours, but you'll eventually catch that you're sitting in that place. And then for you, it's finding, it's like going, oh, I'm here and I need to go do something different, and maybe come back and then decide what I need to do.
Yeah, but also I'd like to say sometimes that, like, it's not always an icky feel. Like, so I've got a real sense of urgency, and if you look at anyone who created anything on this planet, they had a real sense of urgency, and I've got a sense of urgency because like at 14, I had a pretty serious situation where I didn't know if I wanted to be here anymore. At 18, nearly died, and then I had 2 more other near-death experiences. So like, and serious ones. So and everyone's had their challenges, but for me, my repetitive challenge, and then having a cousin in South Africa who's like an older brother to me murdered, like when I was in my teens, and that death, realizing like that kind of that cutting, and he had he was going to be a DJ, he was going to go to Europe, he was wanting to come to Australia, visit, all these sorts of plans, and then it was cut short, and then my own life, hey, this could be cut short, and so it was like a sense of urgency, like get stepping, get to it. And my biggest frustration really is when I'm plateauing or I'm not moving forward. And everybody, like, I don't care who you are, has those ebbs and flows. Everyone, the most successful person you see on the basketball hoop that you love, the sports, but whatever, they've all had it in their life, and they'll have it they'll have it throughout their life now. They'll have it in the middle of their day, and then they'll have to get up and go, okay, I need to train. And you know what? One of the big ways, I guess, a lesson out of it is really going back into your reasons. And that's why it's really important to work out your purpose. Like, so if you've got a target, hey, I want to write a book. Okay, why do you want to write a book? Like, oh, okay, and just like ask yourself why multiple times, dive deep into it and get into the specifics. Like, how many copies do I want to sell? Oh, I want to sell this number. Why? Oh, I just thought of that number. Okay, but why? Why that number? And if you start attaching more of a certain reality, oh, okay, if I get it out to 155,000, then that means each family has a household of 3 people. And then if 3 people get that out, then it will cover the whole city that I live in. You know what I mean? Like, you're adding texture to the why.
Yeah.
And, this is something that I'm learning more and more recently. So I'm not saying that I've known this for a long while, like adding the texture and the layers to the why, rather than just going, hey, I want to be a millionaire. Hey, I want to be this. It's like, when you add texture to it, the texture of like what it will do, and like actually playing it out visually in your mind, and then also playing out maybe what will go wrong if you don't do it, aligned with your list of reasons that aren't just like my personal reasons, but hey, my family, to make my family proud, to make this person who believed in me proud, to help this young kid whatever it is. You add your list of reasons and the texture to your dreams and your visions, then you've got an arsenal that can lead you through that day of frustration, or that day of I'm just not feeling it, or I can't be bothered, or woe is me.
Yeah, and I think just even at putting that to our topic, right? You could even do that with your Fortune family. that
Yeah.
you're
Yeah.
creating.
Definitely.
Why
Definitely.
why do you want to create your fortune family? What would be
Yeah.
the purpose of having your fortune family? And I do have a poem today that I have not yet
Please
shared, so
do.
I'm going to
Please
go ahead.
drop it like it's hot.
I'm laughing because that used to be the name of our Wi-Fi. We
Oh,
called it
really?
"Drop It Like It's Hotspot."
I love it. Oh, that is awesome. Man, I love that. That is great.
That's so
How good is
funny.
that?
Thank you for that. That brought me joy.
I'm glad to hear.
So it's called Family Beliefs. Are these thoughts my thoughts? Where did they come from? Did I just accept them as a child? Did I ever question them? What happens when I'm conscious of what I believe? Perhaps as I learn and grow, the most potent questions are: is it true? Is this what I want to believe? Is this really who I want to be? That is a beautiful, I think it's a beautiful poem.
Can you read it again for us?
Yeah, sure. Are these thoughts my thoughts? Where did they come from? Did I just accept them as a child? Did I ever question them? What happens when I'm conscious of what I believe? Perhaps as I learn and grow, the most potent questions are: is it true? Is this what I want to believe? Is this really who I want to be?
Love it. Love it.
Yeah.
Can I?
Yeah,
So
go
you
for it.
you
No, go for it. Whenever I read this one, it's like, oh yeah, it's just, yeah.
And I think look, I've said that. I think I've said this on previous episodes, but that's the when I read your book and when I've read I haven't read a whole lot of poetry, I'll be honest, but when I've read poetry and your book has made me even more interested in poetry, more and more. Um, and there's like lovely YouTube videos that you can go and listen to, and they have like you know um, like Henry Waldo Smith, or they've got like these different people that are like read, and they've got an old voice, and it's the same thing with Stoicism. Like for some reason, that old voice reading those quotes, like it just does something for me. So that's just a little shout out if you want to check that out. But I guess it's the delivery and the articulation of the message that really can resonate in a different way and inflict something different within you. But even just you reading it, like when I was reading your book of poems, and I was reading actually on a plane, and like sometimes like when you're reading things on a plane or doing something on a plane, I love to use a plane to like for a time to think, because my head is at a higher level now, so you know it's out of all the rubble and the sludge down below of maybe where my thoughts were, and so it's at a higher level now, and it's a bit clearer, and there's that constant noise of the plane, but you've got this little cocoon of like, what am I going to do with this time, this space and time? And I read your book, and like the poems just hit a core, and that's like what I find with poetry, like just the formulation of words, how you choose it, and I think the one thing that I would take away from that, like your poem that you shared, is and I guess when we're talking about fortune in family, it's really talking about how can you enrich your life by enriching your family, and also like choosing like an environment of family, which could be your friends, could be like whoever it is, like long lost family, it could be step parents or brothers. But how can you enrich your life and enrich the lives of your family by surrounding yourself with the right family and the right people, and bringing riches in your love, in your care, in showing up for them, and showing up for the
Yeah.
right people. And with your poem, I think what it really resonated with me was, it's that whole concept of, and I guess this goes to family, don't throw the baby out with the bathwater. Um, but it's the kind of thing where, what really resonated to me was that indoctrination of family, or that kind of, maybe not even the word indoctrination, but just that kind of, hey, this is how we've done it, this is how we'll always do it. And it's a conflict that I've had, because I'm probably very different to a lot of kids my age, because I was raised by my grandparents, and my grandparents came from an era that was very different to me. but they were loving people. I mean, they had 150 different people like live at their house at one point, stay at their house. They had exchange students from China, from the US, from the middle of Australia, from Aboriginal towns, from like wherever, like that, and they had family come and stay with them when the bank took their house or whatever. They had all everyone stay at them, and growing up in their house, I'd go down to the living room and there'd always be someone talking to them. And what would be happening is this person would be a lot of sometimes they'd just be having a conversation, but a lot of times they'd be sharing something. And this was the safe space that my grandparents created because they were like beautiful listeners and they knew who they were. They knew like they were very spiritually connected and they had a lot of strong faith. But but and they had a lot of principles that I think like traditional principles and beliefs and things like that are very strong that I truly believe. And then, but I'm also so the conflict is, and I guess throwing the baby out the bathwater is when it comes time to change and evolve and say, hey, we can't do everything that our forefathers did. We need to actually, because there's new problems now. We can't advertise like we did 50 years ago. There's a huge level of transparency. We've got to be truthful and authentic. So there's so many different things that are changing. So we can't necessarily face the same problems with the same skills that we learned in families. And so for me, it's like not throwing the baby out the bathwater, not saying, oh, they're archaic, traditional stuff sucks. They didn't know what they were doing. It's like, wait a minute, they went through Great Depressions, they went through, like some people went through famines, some, like wars, like all sorts of things. It's like, hang on a minute,
Yeah.
they may have known a few things and got a few things right, but then how can we develop on from that? And so
Mm.
that's the thing, because sometimes and I know like probably sometimes maybe I speak too intensely or whatever it is, and about family, it's like there are the intricate details where there's so much wisdom and wealth and knowledge that you can take from family, and then there's the hang on a minute, I don't need to adopt that belief. When you grew up, like you had to save every penny. Now you have to experiment with your business or what, like you have to actually try and grow it. You have to actually like push more out onto the online universe, to engage people. You can't be conservative across the board. So that's what I take away from your poem.
Oh, thank you. That's beautiful. I love the idea of questioning. I think it's through, I think what the age of 8 is, that's a special age because around that age children
Yeah.
start taking responsibility for their choices. But the interesting thing I was reading, and I don't remember which book I was reading in the other day, but it was talking about how up until the age of 7, and it was talking about the brain waves, and that they're in, I think it was delta and theta usually,
Mm.
as so young babies. So when we're in that
Wow.
that brainwave, we're really just accepting everything as it
Super
is,
impressionable.
and believing it.
Yeah.
And 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 then at the age of 8 we can start really challenging that. Yes, do we challenge it before that? Yes, but the theory in this book was, we really start to live in like beta world as far as our brain waves go, which are much faster and not as slow and not as impressionable, which is, reading your book and having read that one, it really just came together for me on this poem. Really, and of course, having history and knowledge about cognitive behavioral therapy and things like that. Katie, Byron Katie, love Byron Katie's stuff, and loving questions. I think I can't remember. Um, I love a bunch of authors out there that really believe in questions. But that's where I think, sometimes do when we're seeking out the people we want to be around, who do we want to be? and and
Mm.
and and looking at every single person. Now, there are some things about some people in my life I don't like, but I like these other great things. And because I see those great things, like you were talking about earlier, I'm going to be around that person. And if they choose to behave the other way, then I'm going to leave or
Yeah.
or not be around that person. But
Yep.
really, I mean, I think it's important to surround ourselves with people who similar to what we want, but are also willing to challenge us, to put that pressure on. Because like for me, you were talking about frustration earlier and what you learned from it and how it helped you actually in many ways. And for me, I am starting to realize for myself, when I start getting frustrated, I'm just about to learn something new, or there's something there that I am fighting that I don't want to see, you
Something
know?
awesome's about to unfold.
Yeah, so if I can remember that when I'm starting to get frustrated, especially in like those tough high risk conversations. When I say high risk conversations, I'm not meaning abusive situations, emotionally abusive situations, any of that. What I mean is that the high risk conversation where my belief is being challenged and I'm starting to wonder if I'm right, and that's when I might start getting angry. And I've also noticed that with the people I love sometimes, that they will just get angry, they get frustrated, they get
Oh
angry
yeah,
because I hit a button. And the interesting thing is I usually hit a button by asking a question that, and
questions are
they're the
powerful.
one, it's just happening inside of them. And I'm asking the question because I'm, number one, I'm super curious, and number two, I want to know. I just
But it's their stuff though. Like
Yeah.
that's their thing, because like it's got nothing to do with you. You're just the
Yep.
agitator. It's their invalidation of what they believe. It's like their
Yeah.
own inner turmoil. You
Yeah,
know.
so it's true, that's true. And in practicing street epistemology, there's actually a Discord server if you ever want to go practice street epistemology. They're
Okay.
very much a stoic group of
Explain it a
people.
little bit more. Yeah. Yeah.
So street epistemology has so many
Educate
steps,
me here. Yes.
you're gonna challenge a belief. So let's see if I can just a second. I actually have my form right here. They have a trusty little street epistemology paper that you can download from the website, or even on the Discord server you can find it. But they go through steps. So it's choosing a topic, so obtaining consent to have the conversation, super important. I think you and I come into this, we've consented to have these conversations, we talk about it. If I ever ask a question or you ask a question that's a little too harsh, I could be like no, or you could be no, and we would respect that, right? um,
Yeah.
the second step is clarifying of the beliefs, the what types of questions. So what do you mean by that? Could you please elaborate that so I can better understand it? And with street epistemology, you have to take yourself out of it if you're the questioner. So if you're the questioner, then it's not about let's see, there's another acronym that I learned from Brian Fretwell this week. Suggest SOFA. So the acronym is SOFA. So there's no suggestions, opinions, feedback, or advice. There's clarification and there's asking questions. So the first two steps, again, choose the topic, clarification of the belief, the what types of questions, finding their level of confidence. So if you had a belief
Hmm.
and you were 90% confident that it was a true belief, then we could check it and see where the holes are. Searching for the confidence reasons, so the why you believe what you believe.
Hmm.
Examining the reliability of the methods, so the how questions. So how would you do this? Should this particular evidence give us that amount of confidence? Would the same reasoning work with a different claim? Things like that. And then you close out with feedback and reflection. But there are a couple of different tests. The really neat thing about it uh, is remembering that every belief has holes,
Hmm.
every single one. And if every single belief has a hole, like there are holes in believing in God, right? We can't prove it. Da, da, da. Well, I still choose to believe. I love using questions to figure out, for instance, if I still want to believe something, even
Hmm.
about someone else, or if I've made a judgment, or I'm frustrated, or whatever,
Yeah.
or I'm angry with someone. What if, like let's say I had an alcoholic friend. Well, if my belief is that they're only that they're an alcoholic and that means they love me, is that true? I don't think that, or they don't love me because they're an alcoholic. Is that true?
Hmm.
I don't think so. They might just be an alcoholic, and they might also love me. But I have to check all of those beliefs that I have in my life, and so utilizing different tools. And I think it's really helpful also to do that in families, like even with strong political affiliations, right? Like you could have someone that has a really strong political affiliation and start believing that they don't love you because the beliefs that that person have go against your very core being. Well, is it true they don't love you? No, they might just not even realize that what they're believing in right now hurts you, right? Like, I don't know.
I had a good friend of mine, and we're having a few conversations, like as we're becoming friends, and it's like some of his beliefs or some of his opinions were complete opposite to me, and he was sharing some of his stuff, and I was sharing some of my stuff, and he was disagreeing with me, I was disagreeing with him, and I noticed him kind of get quiet and like a little somber or something, and then so I just, I called it out straight. I just said, "Hey, look, I just want to make it very clear, like whether we agree on everything or not doesn't determine whether we're going to be friends or not. For me, is it the same for you?" And he was like, "No, of course not. No, no." And he just suddenly lifted. And I think he must have probably just actually now this conversation after you shared what you shared with me, probably just realizing that he internalized, if Kyle doesn't believe what I believe, then we can't be mates.
And what did you do? What did you do?
Confront.
You talked to him, but what you did on a deeper level was
Ask
you
him a
built
question.
rapport.
Yeah.
Hey, I
Yeah.
want to make sure you know that if
Yeah.
we don't agree on everything, that doesn't impact whether or not we're friends. And then
Yeah.
he came back. Like a lot of times, people just need that rapport. And sometimes that's what I forget. A lot of times, I'm not going to deny it.
Yeah, me too. To build the rapport, and look, it's super challenging and I think it's a super skill. Like, and I've been complimented by some friends, like, like, how do you remain calm and how do you remain focused? But just being able to, when they're having an emotional hissy fit, or they're flying off, like, and they're just going wild, your calmness will be a mirror. Even sometimes if you don't respond, it's a mirror to themselves going, hang on a minute. But if they're yelling and shouting and you yell and shout, then it all gets subdued and lost in in the wishy-washy of fighting. But if they go
Yeah.
mad, and I've done this, I actually I did this a lot when I was younger, but I still do it, like, every now and then knowing when to kind of like jump in, like, and say, no, that's not right, or whatever it is, and knowing when to just, sometimes you've got to remove yourself emotionally and just be purely logical. And then if they're acting emotionally, go, okay, they're not threatening my beliefs, my existence, who I am. They're feeling a threat internally because there's a misalignment, or they're confused. A lot of
Yeah.
times those two things, why is someone an alcoholic? A lot of it comes down to, and having close family members that have been alcoholics and all, like, what I've noticed, my personal experience, is there's a huge sense of confusion, major lack of direction and purpose and destiny and faith and spirituality, of all of that, and self-love. But I'd say, and respect and feeling worthy. But a major part of it is confusion and also misalignment. Like
Yeah.
they're not aligned with all those things that I just said. And
Yeah.
so when you're having these conversations with people and they go all like wacky, they're confused and they've got misalignment. So be understanding of that. And if you're at a level, and like my grandmother, she was a counselor for 60 years, she was able to be at a level where she would communicate, and she would tell me, like, if you're at a level where you're not needing to go into all that, when that mental insanity isn't messing you up, then then you know then respect that and go, hey, this is a skill, this is an asset, this is something I can bring to this relationship. And sometimes you have to allow the fire hydrant to exhaust itself,
Yeah.
and then you can start having a conversation.
Oh yeah, and I love Byron Katie says people don't something to the effect, and I don't know if I have this correct, but people don't hurt people unless they're confused.
I remember getting a book of hers a while ago, and then like it had a whole worksheet where you download like this worksheet and you ask all
Yep.
these questions about your belief systems. Oh, it was fantastic. Yeah,
Yeah, yeah,
I've
you
got
can
to go
find
back into
that
it.
at the street epistemology stuff can be found on streetepistemology.com. And then
Yes.
Byron Katie's work, you can actually download like a little tiny PDF book and the worksheets, and those can be found at thework.org. And then if you look really hard on the
Yes, the work.
website, you can also call someone to help you work through a worksheet if you haven't worked through one before, or you don't know someone who has worked through one before. So super helpful.
Support.
But
So good.
we are 5 minutes over our hour, and I want to be respectful of time. And we have not given any homework.
No, that's a great question. That's great. That's a great observation. So, yeah. So I guess the homework for this week would be and I guess we have questioned our cognitive biases before, but maybe a good homework would be, and I've heard this. I'm taking this from somewhere else. I can't remember where I got it from. Like one week we were talking about find something you can learn from someone you hate. You know,
Yes.
um, I reckon this one maybe we'll try agreeing, just being in agreement, not spiritually contracting yourself as an agreement. Yes, I believe with your belief, and now I'm subdued to your reality or your belief in your experience, but just agreement in terms of dealing with conflict. So kind
Like
of
letting the
that.
other person have being okay with the other person having their belief, like agreeing to let them have their belief kind of thing.
Yeah, well, kind of just in agreement with, like, so if someone challenges you and you feel that energy coming up of like, I'm going to shout back, just go, like a few words, like, okay, I can understand how you see it that way. Like, just, a few agreements.
Oh,
Maybe a better one, actually, I just thought of it. Maybe a better one would be, maybe notice and note down all the times that you felt riled up and check yourself, like give yourself a tick every time you didn't engage
mm,
in the firefight and you were
okay.
calm. And then self-reflect. If it pops up, just be aware of it. If there's a moment, like, and you'll know the moment. If there's a moment where there's like conflict and fighting and shouting, you'll know it. Just listen to our voices in your head, like, in that moment, just going, take one step back, let them have their emotional reaction, and you bring forth your logical reaction. And my God, it will
Yeah.
help your life a lot better.
And when you first try it, it will feel awkward and weird. And just know that
Mm.
that means you're doing something different. The
Yeah.
thing I'm going to put in there is just because I think it's included in yours. I would say check your beliefs, question them. What do
Yeah.
they mean? Are they true? Um, I wish I could remember. Let's see, what were Byron Katie's 4 questions? I know one of the first ones, is it true? And are you absolutely sure it's true? And then you do something else, and then you do turnarounds. So turnarounds are pretty interesting. I'll never forget sitting with one of my kids, and we did a Byron Katie worksheet, and absolutely everything was true. And then the third question is, oh, who would you be without that thought or that belief, right?
Wow.
um is a fantastic question. But the turnaround, she just started laughing, because all of a sudden, because it's a meditation, it's not about being right or wrong. It's a meditation on the belief and trying to understand yourself. And what happened was we came to one of those turnarounds, and I think it was like she needed to do something, because it was like taking the belief and flipping the belief. And she just started laughing and crying at the same time, because she realized it was her, that she wanted him to do something, but it was because maybe but reality was maybe she needed to give a little bit more. Like,
Mm.
and that was what was true for her, because it's that the same turnaround is not always going to be the right one, but it's a
Mm.
meditation to better understand yourself and where you're coming from in
Yeah.
your beliefs.
Yeah. And yeah, I think that's great. I was going to add something else to that. And also, We can find your book on Amazon, correct?
And we can find your book on Amazon also, and many other places, right?
Well, yeah. So my paperback has just come out. So my paperback's just launched. So I've got that through.
Yay.
So I just had the Kindle, so the paperback's available now, and I just ordered a whole bunch of author copies so, to fulfill all the people that pledged their support during my crowdfunding campaign, and also to give a lot of people like for Christmas gifts and things like that. So yeah, Christmas gifts before Christmas comes up. There's
Yeah.
books, poems from a lost soul,
And
Decide
decide
Your
your
Destiny.
destiny. Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah, that's a
take a look.
fantastic. Yeah, push it
Awesome.
out. Oh,
All right, so the homework, just to revise quickly, is to check yourself. If you can, pull back and be logical in a highly emotional, volatile situation, whether it's a workplace or family or personal, and give yourself a tick and note it down. Maybe even write down the exchange and what happened, and maybe their reaction surprised you, or maybe it was awkward the first time you tried it and then it developed. And then also challenge your beliefs with those questions. And the other one I wanted to say, that's what I wanted to say with your questions, because they were great questions. The other thing, a great question would be like, the epidemiology or the derivation of a word, the root, where the word come from. So think of that, or go into the root cause. What's causing this issue here? Like there's the water's contaminated. Oh, there was a cow that died up in the hills where the river starts. So going visually going to the root of the belief. Where did that belief come from? Who gave me that belief? If you can work down and work through, oh my gosh, it was like when I was a kid and then I fell out of this tree and then someone told me, be careful. And now I've been riddled with this thing of always being careful in my life. And I've never actually gone out and, been dangerous and risky and wild and expressive. And, like I've been being careful. And so, think of that kind of cow at the top of the river that's, died and it's like now infecting the stream. Work out where that belief is, find the root cause and the root location of that belief and see where it was. And like you said, test out its validity, if it's valid or not.
yeah, definitely.
Before my tongue gets too tired, let's call it a show.
Yeah. Thank you so much for watching today. I'm Angela.
I'm Kyle. And this is the destiny.
Oh yeah,
the destiny of your soul.
You got it.
Have a great week, guys. We'll see you next week.